What up, YouTube? I am back here. Your boy Donnie Jars back with another video, and in this one, I want to try something different because at this point, only the third video in my channel. Want to try different things and see what sticks, see what I enjoy doing. But yeah, for this one, I want to go over some of my favorite books that I've read in the past few years, specifically historical fiction books because those are what I'm into. Want to give you my top 5, my personal favorites. These are always changing. If you ask me in a few months, I might have a different list for you in a different order. But yeah, let's get into this. So to preface this video, the reason I chose historical fiction and the reason it's my favorite is I've always been a history buff and I really enjoy realistic scenarios. I tried to get into fantasy. I like fantasy. I respect fantasy. But when I'm reading, I like things to be realistic. For the most part, so that's why I enjoy historical fiction so much. And I think that if you're trying to get into reading, or if you're a fantasy reader and you want to try something new, maybe try some of these books. Some of them you might recognize if you've been on BookTube. But let's get into my top 5. So number 5, I have Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. And if you have seen the movie No Country for Old Men, The Road, you might have heard of the books. If you're on BookTube or BookTok, you've definitely heard of the books. But my number 5 is Blood Meridian. Read that about a year ago. Really enjoyed the book. If you're familiar with Cormac McCarthy, he has a unique writing style. He doesn't use much punctuation at all. There's no quotation marks, nothing. He typically doesn't name his characters, or doesn't use their real names. So you'll have characters like the kid, the judge. So it's a unique reading experience. If you're new to getting into reading for leisure, I would recommend skipping this for a little bit and read some easier books. But it's a good story. It's about a 14-year-old who runs away from Tennessee, runs westward towards Texas, and joins a murderous gang. It's a very violent book. People say it's one of the most violent books ever. I didn't really see it as that. Maybe I'm a little desensitized to violence, but it's a great book. Shows how some of the indigenous Americans were treated by these gangs that went around scalping. But yeah, not to get too deep into it. It's my number 5. So at number 4 on my list of favorite historical fiction books, we have The Killer Angels by Michael Shaara. I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. But this is the second book in a trilogy. The first book and the sequel were written by his son after Michael passed away. But the book follows different figures involved with the Battle of Gettysburg in Pennsylvania. It starts with the build-up, or the lead-up to the battle. You see how the forces converge and how there were spies involved to know where the Union soldiers were and how the Confederates were moving towards Gettysburg, and the Union Army was doing the same. So you get an understanding of how the battle started and why the battle occurred, as well as getting into the heads of these prominent figures in the battle, like General Longstreet, General Robert E. Lee, and some lesser known people like Chamberlain on the Union side. But it's just an awesome book. It's exciting. You get battle stuff. You get political stuff. Great book. Highly recommend it if you're into history, and gives you a good understanding of some of the areas of the Civil War that maybe you've heard of. Obviously, Gettysburg's a common name, but you might not know how the battle actually happened. So I believe it's a 3 or 4 day journey through some of these soldiers in the battle, but definitely recommend this book. Coming in at number 3, we have the most exciting concept you've ever heard for a book that you're really excited about. We have The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett, which is about the building of a cathedral in medieval England. And you hear that and probably think that's probably the most boring thing I've ever seen, especially because the book is about 1,000 pages long. But for real, this book is really exciting, and it even reads like a fantasy, so I've been told, without the fantastical elements. But yeah, it's a great book. You follow Tom Builder, who is a master builder, as he journeys through the harsh conditions of medieval England, barely hanging on by a thread, and comes to become the master designer for this cathedral. You follow the whole process. It takes decades, and there's political intrigue, there's other characters involved, there's love stories, everything. And it is a page turner for a book about the building of the cathedral, so definitely recommend it. This one almost put at number 2. If I reread it, I probably will put it at number 2, and it's also the part of a series which I plan to read eventually, but definitely recommend it. So coming up next at number 2, we have The Winter King by Bernard Cornwell. This one does have some magic in it, but it's very minimal, and it's more religious in nature, as there's a battle between Christianity and Druidism in the book. But this book is an Arthurian legend that follows Derval throughout the tales of Arthur. It's very exciting. This was my first entry into the Arthurian sphere. The premise of the book is the High King of Britain dies and the country falls into chaos, and you're following Derval. He's one of Arthur's warriors, as he navigates through, leading armies through this chaos. He's fighting other kingdoms and kings in Britain, as well as the Saxons who are invading the island. But it's a great book. It's action-packed. Bernard Cornwell does an amazing job describing some of the battles. But if you're interested in kind of a fast-paced book, you're into Game of Thrones, those kind of fantasy books, but you want something more grounded in reality. While this isn't based on historical fact, as Arthur has never existed, a lot of the elements within the book, a lot of the kingdoms, a lot of the landscapes, everything did exist, and it's as historically accurate as possible. So if you want something exciting like that with some historical accuracy, but the plot might not be real, definitely recommend this book. It is part of a trilogy. I'm going to read the second and third books pretty soon. I'm excited to read those, but love this book. Highly recommend it. And at number 1, which is probably on many other top book lists, I think a lot of top books of all time lists, top American novel lists, I've seen all over the place, but number 1 is Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. I read this a few years ago, I think 3 years ago now, so I'm already ready to read it again. But it follows a cattle drive led by retired Texas Rangers down from Texas, and they want to be the first to drive cattle all the way up to Montana, which is a very long journey through some barren plains with Native Americans. There's murder, kidnapping, you name it, it's all in here. It's an exciting book. The dialogue is just unreal. There's a lot of conversations in this book where you feel like you're part of the conversation, sitting there next to them at the fire, what have you. But the dialogue in this book, the character development, everything is top notch. If you want a book where you connect with the characters and even feel like you're friends with them, this book, man, this book is just so good. It's a page turner. You can read 200 pages at a time and not get tired. Whereas, some other books you read 20 pages and you need to take a break. But this book is what got me into reading. I've only been reading for a few years, pretty heavily. This is what started it all. So if you're on the fence about reading this book, or if it's because it's 1,000 pages long and you're hesitant, I say go for it. I've read one of the sequels, which is Streets of Laredo, which follows Captain Call after the events of this book. That book's great. Not as good as this book, though. So if you want an amazing book, Lonesome Dove's the one for you. Definitely recommend it. So that completes it. Those are my top 5 historical fiction books. I plan on reading many more this year, throughout the year. And then maybe, who knows, next year, if I'm still doing these videos, I'll update the list if there's anything I like more. I'm sure I'll like the sequel to The Winter King. Pretty good. It has a higher rating on Goodreads, so we'll see. I'm excited. to dive into some more videos, and I don't know if I'm going to keep them, what genre I'll make them, but I plan to keep doing these commentaries like the classic Call of Duty commentaries. They're just fun to make. I enjoy playing Call of Duty, and I enjoy talking about stuff like this that I'm interested in, that I don't know other people to talk to in real life about these books. They're not too interested in historical fiction books. So yeah, I'm just going to keep chugging along with these videos. If for whatever reason you're still listening and you have any feedback, let me know. Happy to take it. But yeah, see you guys in the next one.